Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the Open Mic Comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or a tutor. And even comedy fans who enjoy watching the stars of the future in pub basements around the world. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the middle of it. Today's guest, though, however, is going to bring something a little bit different. He's primarily, I would say, a writer and a filmmaker. And he has one of the most interesting YouTube channels all about comedy out there at the moment. I think implore anybody should go and look at. So please welcome to the stage, the creator of Comedy Zola is Mr. Jim Hodgson.
Hello.
Hello, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's okay.
That was quite an intro. That's I feel fully aggrandized. Thank you for that.
What were you expecting?
I don't know. Fart noise and a slap in the tits, you know.
I can give you a air horn somewhere.
Oh, that'll do. Yeah. That'll do.
That is the colloquial noise that every comedian in the UK hates, because that's the noise associated with gong shows we have in the UK.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I don't know if you have gong shows in the States, do you?
Well, we do, but you know, I've done one or two of them, but it was like, I don't remember what the rules were. I did one a while ago, and I think it was like, if we start clapping instead of laughing, then you have to get off the stage.
Okay.
But there were so few people at the show that they just let everybody go until they got tired.
So what's your background then? Because you've got a multitude of different things you've done, haven't you? Yeah.
I have. I don't know. I have like restless everything syndrome. I can't. I don't know. I guess, you know, I have an ADHD diagnosis from when I was a kid, but I don't like to talk about it because it's, you know, I had it before it was cool.
Yeah.
I feel people are, you know, pinching my style now. What's my background? Well, I wanted to be a novelist. But that's not really a possible thing, you know, thanks to Bezos. You know, I don't know if you're a Cory Doctorow fan, but his book, Choke Point Capitalism, talks all about how Bezos kind of ended the concept of being a novelist that way. But that's what I wanted to be, you know, like Terry Pratchett type of novelist would have been my ideal life.
Yeah. You got into filmmaking.
Yeah, well, I have a long background in theater. I started performing when I was 6, like, you know, school plays. And, you know, from there, I got into theater in high school and stayed with it through college and worked after that. You know, and I was doing shows all the way up until COVID kind of stopped that. So, yeah. But I was thinking about ways, because I was getting sick with theater of, I don't know. I mean, you know, one of the greatest things about it is that ephemeral nature. Like when the show's over, the thing is gone. But I was getting annoyed with spending all this time writing these plays and putting them on. And then when the show was over, it would be gone. And I would have nothing to look back and say, look at this amazing thing that we did.
Yeah.
You know, so when COVID came and I was at home anyway, then I started trying to think about how to do, you know, how to make that into film projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I will come on to the thing that I found you from, but how's your relationship with comedy as an art form purely kind of come around?
Well, I was a fat kid and I wanted people to like me and not hit me quite as much. So I learned how to be funny. You know, later on I wanted girls to like me. So, you know, so I guess there's a progression. Like first I wanted my parents to like me.
Yeah.
And then I wanted the people at school to like me. And then I was very interested in girls liking me. And all of that is really smoothed over by being able to tell jokes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first ever joke you ever told?
No, because I instead of a soul, I have jokes. So there'd be no way to remember the first, you know. I mean, you know, it's like being able to remember your passage down the birth canal. No, but I do remember. The first one that I wrote that I thought that is shaped like a joke, and I thought it would work, and it did work.
Yeah.
I'll share that if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
It was now that I've offered to share it, I can't quite remember the wording, but it was along the lines of the chunk started with I think one of the worst mistakes that birds ever made is packaging their young for easy transport.
Okay.
And then it expanded from there into like, Easter and bird parents being, like chicken parents being terrified at watching their young taken away. God, there was a lot of crying in the audience, more crying than laughing, really. Just I sold it too well, I think.
Okay.
But no, I remember thinking when I wrote it, like, yeah, there's a joke, buddy. Look at that.
Yeah.
And then telling it and have people laugh and being like, I am a god, Yeah. And then the next joke is just right on its face.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all been through that quite regularly whenever we're experimenting and stuff.
That feeling of the sweat starting on the back of your neck, like that prickly feeling on the shoulders, like,
yeah,
oh boy.
The worst thing I find that I do, and I'm sure a lot of very new comics do, is when they tell a joke and they expect the laughter, there's an immediate thing and the laughter doesn't happen. And then you've got the audience looking at you and you're thinking, they don't get it. Mm-hmm. And then you start trying to explain the joke to try and make it funny. And you realize, no, they got it. It was just crap.
Yeah. Yeah. No. They understood the terms. Yeah. I worked with a drummer, and he used to talk about learning to play drums. And he would talk about like, when your arms get tired because you're trying to play faster than you really can. He would say that that you're too tired for your skill level when you're having to really, like, your arms tighten up and you're starting to use more muscles than just like your fluid wrists. And he would call that muscling it in. He would say, you're muscling it in. And I think about jokes that way sometimes too. Like in that experience you're describing, I think sometimes you can just stare at the audience and let them know that, yeah, that's what I meant to say. And sometimes they'll come with you just out of force of will. You can really muscle it in sometimes.
I like that.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes not so much, but yeah, it's sometimes, I guess you kind of give off the impression that, yes, I know I want you to feel sympathy for me. I want you to come with me and enjoy this and enjoy my pain and make this pain not feel as bad. But hey, I meant this all along. This is the act.
Yeah. I like that. I'm always trying to get toward that, just that uncompressible presence on stage, like a Stuart Lee kind of, where it's almost Brechtian theater more than stand up sometimes, Yeah. But just like that's what I would say is really muscling it in, Like I'm really attracted to that. I'm not sure that attendees are, but
yeah.
But I like it.
So how long have you actually been performing then in stand-up?
I started in 11 or 12 with stand-up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what year it was, but I know because I've always written my jokes in Google Docs. And so I still have, I still have a lot of them. I think Google's probably sick of storing those jokes. They're just like, it's costing us an infinitesimal fraction of a % to store these bits, but that's too much because these are trash.
One day, I don't know if your jokes are building the new AI model or something. They're just Google is scanning all the docs, going, right, this is what AI is now based on. This is what we're start seeing.
If that's well, I don't know that AI could be worse, but if there's a way, surely it's connected to that.
So how did you get into stand up? Because what's the kind of process in the States? What happens there? In the UK, it's very much there's like what this podcast is based around is the open mic circuit. People who get up, give it a go, but everybody seems to have like a very different route into it. Some people do a course to get the confidence or learn some techniques. Some people just get up there and do it and see what happens, and then a vast majority of people fall by the wayside very, very quickly. But then there's a another group that kind of then pursue it and keep going, but then never get anywhere. But actually getting onto the stage, what was it for you in 2011, 2012 that made you think this is something I want to give it a go?
Well, I always identified as a funny person, and I kind of felt shame about not having done stand-up, like having thought so much about stand-up and the stand-ups that I liked, and and thinking about their material, and I just felt a bit like a fraud for not having done it myself. Like if you really like this thing, then you can't legitimately say what you like or don't like about it if you haven't gone and done it yourself.
Yeah.
This is the way that I'm talking to myself about it. And also around that time, I had been playing in bands for a living for a while. And I just was tired of lugging gear around. And, and I was also doing, I would also do like jokes between songs and stuff like that. And then I was just kind of had the realization, like, why am I lugging all this gear around? I'm not that good of a singer. I enjoy playing music, but I'm not a singer.
Yeah.
My voice is way too low. And I'm kind of doing jokes between songs anyway. So why don't I just stop? I should at least try it, And then I did I did a charity show that I hosted, and there were comedians on the show, and I was telling them, like, I've always thought about doing stand up, and one of them was just like, well, why don't you quit thinking about it and do it, you idiot? And I was like, you got a point. It's a bit harsh, but you got a point.
I think there's a lot of people out there that need that little bit of a nudge in the right direction and stuff like that. I don't think that's unusual at all. And it's not going to kill you.
Right.
It's just,
it might feel like it.
You might bore people for 5 minutes or whatever, but then you'll soon know whether it's for you or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I tell this story a lot, but I bombed one time in front of, just everything, the things that it was as though when I was talking, chlorine gas was coming out of my mouth as I was speaking, like it was, it was so bad. And I'm like sloughing back to the back of the room to hide. And the host called someone I'd never heard of on stage. And I'm having this thought as this is happening. I'm having the thought, well, the crowd's just not good. They're not feeling it tonight. They're not happy. A friend of mine, a fellow comedian's there. He's like, hey, this crowd, I don't know. Don't worry about it. He's trying to be a friend and tell me to shake it off. And the next guy absolutely murdered. Just, it was Eric Andre.
Okay.
He was, hitting home runs, like home run after home run.
Yeah.
It was, I don't think the guy even said a single prepared joke. He was like looking at the TV over the bar and riffing about that and riffing about the audience and was absolutely killing everybody. And I was like, okay, I got some work to do here.
Yeah. I always go back to a story that I've told a few times to people about. I remember being on stage doing a routine for the very, very first time, thinking it's a great routine. I'm doing it. And it was of a bit of a risque sexual nature as such. Mm-hmm. And there was a young man in the front row who had Down syndrome.
Oh, boy.
And he had obviously been told at some point in his life that rude words and swearing is bad. And I swore a couple of times, and he kind of put his hands over his ears and went, no. And I'm like going, what's going on here? And I've kind of, because everyone's now focused on this other person and nobody's laughing at this routine, my brain's going, well, go with more emphasis, go harder. And I'm swearing more. And you know what's happening. And it got to a point where I was like, your 5 minutes is up. I'm going. And it was just like, I nearly quit after that. That was like my second ever gig. And I thought, I'm not sure this is for me. And then I kind of looked back and it went, it then all made sense on what was going on. But because I didn't put it together on stage, I was like, shit.
Yeah. How can you know? Especially when you're in that sort of, you're in that onstage mindset, it's hard to have the clarity, that the room has about what's going on.
Yeah.
Mark, that's a tough one, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. I wish I was there though. I would like to have seen it.
There is a video, but it's very much made private.
That's good.
Yeah. But one thing, I mean, kind of like I guess the main reason how I found you online was through your YouTube channel, Comedy Zola. What's the name, first of all, the Zola part? What does that have a reference for anything, or is that?
Émile Zola was a French novelist, sort of during the Impressionist period, so late 19th century. And there was a scandal during that time called the Dreyfus Affair, where this man was accused of treason against the French state, and it turned out that he wasn't actually guilty, and that a lot of the reason that he was being accused of this treason was that he was Jewish. Okay. It was like mostly an anti-Semitic thing, and it turned into the kind of scandal that really you could see in the headlines now. You know, I mean, it's just a big mess. But Zola, he wrote that famous article that just huge block letters at the top of the article in the paper, "J'accuse," you know, I accuse you.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where "J'accuse" comes from. But you know, he risked his reputation, such as it was, to say this is wrong. You know, this is wrong. And that's how I feel about you know, Rogan and the anti-woke Roganites and their ilk being racist and anti-Semitic. And you know, I'm not saying that I'm anywhere near the gravitas or importance of Zola, but you know, that's how I feel, that this is wrong. You know, I mean, comedy doesn't need to be abusive to people.
Yeah.
And if you need that in your work, then you're not very good at it.
Yeah. No, I'll be honest, far too intelligent for me when you start talking about French people and authors and stuff. I'm like, okay. And then, but when you kind of mention J'accuse, and I've heard of it and stuff like that, and
yeah,
it kind of makes sense. And like the description you've just given is kind of very apt, because let's start with the fun side of things. It was quite funny how I found the channel. Is I ended up on a if I want to be non-serious for any period of time, I've had like a hard day at work or whatever, or something's got on top of me, I always go down a Mitch Hedberg rabbit hole.
Yeah,
because the guy, I think, was an absolute genius, and
hard to beat. Yeah,
I associate him seeing comedy with particular friends of mine and stuff like that I hold very dear to me. And I just go Hedberg, just watched the Just for Laughs from Canada, I think it was. Watched that one, watched another one. Then it came to the video you did about it, where talking about puns and stuff, and that kind of just got me kind of hooked in to when you're talking about how certain types of puns aren't clever, but when you look at them in the way Hedberg does them, for example, it adds another dimension to it, and it was something I'd never ever thought about before.
Well, good. That's you know, that's a very positive review from my perspective. But you know, yeah. First of all, look, I'll take viewers however I can get them. You know, I mean, yeah. I mean, big Hedberg fan. He I believe his last show was here in Atlanta at the Punchline. So, R.I.P. Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when I kind of found him, I think he'd already passed away. And a friend of mine just said, "You've just got to watch this guy." Gave me, obviously back in the day, gave me a DVD, put it on, and I was just watching it, just like, and that was it. We were in hysterics, and just that was it. Love with that guy. Just the jokes were so silly, but there was something. I guess I watched them back then as a comedy fan, but not a comedy student. And I think you can watch Hedberg in two very different ways, and you can appreciate the straight up comedy when you're just a fan of it, but when you delve into the being a student and studying it, I think you can look at him in a very different way as well. Yeah,
I think that's right. I mean, you mentioned it, but I love the sort of the whimsical universe that he creates. You know, I mean, even as he's talking about very serious things, you know. But yeah, and I feel similarly, you know, about Stephen Wright or you know, Jeselnik in a way, although his comedy isn't, you know, as whimsical. It is clear that it's hyper real. It's not quite he doesn't actually want to put a bell around grandmother's neck, you know, like that. But
Yeah.
but in the world of the joke, that's what's going on. So yeah, I mean, I my dad and I really connected when I was young over Stephen Wright and appreciating his humor, you know.
Yeah.
Anywhere's within walking distance if you have the time, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's things like that are just, I think they're great. I honestly do. But I recently watched the bit you did about Matt Rife. And I thought I think I implore anybody to go and watch that because I think it's great. But the very last bit you put into the edit was very, very apt, I thought, in that it's completely contradictory. If the last bit is his true view, he doesn't need the first bit.
Yeah, he's at the end. He says, you know, can everybody just be nice or something like that? Can everybody just be kind? How hard is that kind of thing? And it's like, okay, Matt, maybe you could, you know, follow your own. But that's my big complaint with these folks is I think that they truly believe that they're not harming anyone. I think they really believe that somehow they've convinced themselves that I can accept millions of dollars for this thing that I do, but also it doesn't matter. And that is not, there's no way that both of those things are true. It's just, if it really didn't matter, nobody would pay you millions for it. I mean, you know, and then now Rogan is at, you know, state events with the president, you know, so, I mean, it matters, guys. Say whatever else you want about it, but it matters. There's no, you know.
I mean, there's a reason that Trump goes on the Joe Rogan podcast in the lead up to an election, isn't there?
Yeah. And, you know, and Harris wanted to go on and Rogan was like, oh, geez, I don't know. I'm busy that week. You know, sorry. He was like, you know, she's like trying to run a presidential campaign in 100 days. And he was like, well, you got to come to Austin and you got to sit here for 3 hours. I'm like, all right, bud, you know.
Yeah, it's very much, I don't know how to put it. I don't know if they actually, some of these people actually understand the influence they have or are just completely blind to the actual influence they have over people. Because if you think, I don't have much influence, but you can get now the president of the United States on a podcast, you know, you've got influence. Trump's not doing,
or even if you can get 1,000 people in a theater, that's influence, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think, you know, I think they think influence equals money. I have influence, so I get money. And it's like, when you say to them or their fans, well, what about this other kind of influence? It's like, I'm not into that. But you are, you know. I mean, they're part and parcel. It's not, you know, they come together. Yeah.
So what made you just go, I'm gonna put these out there and just gonna see how this goes and stuff, you know? It's quite a brave thing, I think, to go out and put your view out there about somebody, you know, that's that much bigger, that much more, I don't like to say the word powerful as such, but the influence that they have.
Hubris, I guess, is the most direct answer. I have an inflated opinion of myself, you know, but I'm angry. I'm upset. I don't want to live in a fascist dictatorship. And I think that these guys are helping to usher that along. It's annoying to me to see an art form that I feel very deeply about turned into this other thing. Like everyone has to have a trans joke. And I don't think they should. I don't understand why we're doing that. And I think it's a dumb idea. I think it's harmful. And I'm mad about it. And so there's nowhere for that to go, because if I tried to incorporate that, like if I said to myself, okay, well, I'm just going to go do stand up about it and try to fight fire with fire and tell jokes about it, I couldn't write those jokes without being preachy, you know? And I also think, you know, when I started, I was writing in Google Docs like these screeds, you know, pages and pages and pages about how mad I am and why I think. And then I started to think, you know, this would probably work better rather than preaching to show examples and say, here is exactly what I think is not right. And here's exactly why. And here's how it could be done differently, you know? Yeah. So rather than just, you know, vomiting my spleen to the ether, to say, to get more granular and be like, this is exactly my problem, and here's why.
Yeah. So have you ever had a fear of any criticism coming from, if a comedian picks up on, gets shown a clip or whatever, or anything like that? Have you ever had a fear or something that is going to come back on you? Or have you just kind of like, let's talk, or is that what you want? And then have a discussion about it?
I'm more afraid of feeling this strongly about something and not expressing it and dying without, basically, and dying a coward, I mean, we are, not to bring the temperature down, but we're headed into a tunnel here, and I hope I live to see the end of it. And if not, I hope I leave a legacy that, will not be embarrassing to me. I don't know. I just feel deeply about what comedy should be, and it should be, and all art should be. And I think that these people are accessories to some very bad things. And I think a lot of people are not saying anything because they're afraid of exactly what you're talking about. But I'm not making any money from stand-up, so stand-up can cancel me if it wants to. I mean, so I guess I have I don't know. I have the same attitude as Gervais, but we're on opposite ends of the spectrum, where he's uncancelable because he's too famous, and I'm uncancelable because nobody knows who I am.
Yeah, got it.
I mean, maybe some comedian I've talked about has seen one of my videos or something like that. I doubt it. I mean, I'm not bothered, and I also think I try to be intellectually fair. So
yeah,
if they had a criticism, then I'm open to that. I mean, I'm interested in, as you said, a dialogue about it. So that would be okay.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed your last one, or one of the recent ones, about Dave Chappell on Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can tell somebody that's done comedy for a while to somebody that hasn't. And when I watch Dave Chappelle and how you're talking about what he's doing and how he's acting, and there was one part of it that struck me was when you said something along those lines, and look how he just stays still.
Mm-hmm.
And having the confidence to kind of try and do that, and sitting there and smoking on the stage, which in this day and age seems almost quite alien.
Yeah. I wish he would stop. I don't think it's good for him. But it's his thing. I mean, he's a grown man. He can do what he wants. But yeah, I also haven't ever seen anybody talk about stand-up the way I'm talking about it. Maybe there is somebody, and I'm just not familiar with them. But I really get into that kind of thing. Like it's such an interesting combination of art forms. I mean, there's the poetry of of writing the thing, and then there's the performance of it.
Yeah. And
there's almost a dance aspect of it. I mean, you talk about Chappelle, when the punch comes, he just sits. And like, I've tried to do that. We were talking about muscling it in earlier. I've tried to be still on stage like that. And it is immense pressure. I mean, it's so much easier to talk than it is to be still and not show any shaking, or not let your face do anything weird. The control of a guy like Jeselnik, he's walking slowly around the stage. He's talking slowly, the amount of control that takes. And I don't think it's apparent to people until they've tried to do it, what it takes to do that, So I really enjoy that stuff.
Yeah. I found, I went through a period, I still do, is that my heart rate peaks before I'm about to go on stage quite drastically. I've sat there before. I sat there a few weeks ago and looked at my watch and went, 160 beats a minute, and you're sitting down. Like, Jesus Christ. I mean, I used to do a lot of road cycling, and I'm peaking at 175 beats a minute on a road bike.
Yeah, I'm a big bike rider too.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there. I'm 160. I'm just like, wow, this is something. I need to work something out for this.
What do you say? What do you say to yourself when you're in that position? What's your self-talk like? What are you doing?
I would start doing some kind of very methodical deep breathing to try and feel like I'm calm. But a lot of the time I don't feel agitated. It's almost like there's that rocky moment where you're getting ready to go. You're getting ready to go into fight, and your feet are going to hit that stage soon. And that's the moment that everything kind of calms down. But what I started to do, which somebody suggested was instead of standing up, was to sit down on stage. And that became a really interesting experiment for probably about 10 gigs. And if I get the chance to do it, I try to do it, especially if I'm working new stuff out. I will try to sit down rather than stand up, because I think it brings me lower. So it takes away the audience looking up at you. It's less of a preaching down to the audience, if you see what I mean.
I do.
And by sitting down, the idea was that hopefully my heart rate would go down as well, so I feel calmer. And there's a few friends of mine that I've done this and sent them a video, and they're like, that is a world of difference. You've just become immediately calmer. And I have this thing, as I'm sure.
Oh, in your delivery, they're saying it's different in your delivery.
Yeah, delivery's different. Everything's calmer. Everything's less rushed. And it's just like, it becomes like when you're talking to friends rather than talking to an audience. It's a very weird kind of thing, because I've also got a thing where I'm holding a mic in one hand, so I've got another hand. And so what do you do with that other hand?
Yeah.
So where's it go? If it goes in the pocket, it looks defense. You look like you're defending.
You look like a kid on the playground.
Yeah. And if you're confident enough, you can then start swapping the hands around, but then the movement of a mic becomes distracting for an audience and they're not listening to what you're saying. So there's all these kind of things that I'm trying to analyze now and understand. But yeah, sitting down was always an interesting thing to try. And that's what I noticed, like when you spoke about Chappelle. I mean, I haven't seen much of Chappelle over the years as such and his normal style, but the relaxed, chilled out, hey, we're going to have a conversation. And you might laugh. You might not, but I don't care.
But then at the end of the set, he stands up and it's like, oh, okay, we're turning a corner now. Here we go.
Yeah.
When I'm about to go on and I feel that I'm trying to tell myself, like, this is the fun part, you know? So like, if you don't like this, then, I mean, like I try to think about it like going on a roller coaster or something like that, like this is the fun. This is the part that you enjoy, is like the rush of doing it. But I don't like when I'm so nervous and so excited. I feel like my voice it like quavers.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do about that other than get more time. It helps when you get more time.
Yeah, I'm always very self-critical when it comes to speaking out loud, and you feel like you stutter, but you might not actually stutter. But it's your brain's going, right, I'm processing thoughts as I'm going, and it's coming out your mouth. And the audience don't necessarily notice it, but I always end up going, it doesn't feel as clean as it could be. It just comfort and practice and all of that kind of stuff.
I always feel it. I feel like I get off and I'm off stage and I'm like, that went okay, and then I listen to it on the way home and it was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. There were some laughs in there, like, but in the moment you're like, oh, these guys are killing me. I feel like I'm pulling teeth, I feel like I'm just having to reach into their bodies and like withdraw laughs by force of will. And then I listen to it and it's like, oh, I don't know. This guy sounds all right.
Yeah. There was somebody on one of a previous episode of this who said, your good gigs are never as good as you think they are, and your bad gigs are never as bad as you think they are.
I would agree with that.
And I think that's extremely apt. They're always somewhere in between, but it's that moment.
I just heard David Cross a second ago on a podcast talking about performing in the UK. And he was saying that he was saying that the highs are higher, but the lows are lower than performing in the US. I don't know if you've performed here. I haven't done anything there, so I wouldn't know.
I'm coming to the States in April, and I'm really tempted to try and see if I can find a local mic spot. Yeah.
Where are you going to be?
Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea what's around there.
Nothing. Desert. I mean, I could not. I despise Vegas with every fiber of my being.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of those places that probably shouldn't exist, but
Not probably. It 100% should. It is a crime against nature in every way.
Yeah.
Like we all laugh about neon, but Vegas is like, a 40s neon, 40s, 50s neon.
But no, I might see if I can find an open spot and just to say,
there's got to be a mic there that you could do.
Yeah.
My family, we just went to Canada, and I wish I had done a spot up there. And I know some folks up there, and I probably could have gotten up, but I also felt like maybe I should spend time with my family.
There is part of that, isn't it? It's like you spend all this time with your family, and you're talking about comedy, and they may or may not be interested whatsoever.
Oh God, yeah.
And you're like, oh, let's go on holiday, and then the first thing you say is, I want to find an open mic spot, and they're like, really?
Well, I've heard a friend of mine who lives there, Alvaro Salvano, says that French language, the Francophones, love comedy. Like they like doing a show for the Francophones is much different than the Anglophones, because the English speakers are kind of like, okay, show me what you got, and the Francophones are like, we're here to have fun. So, and like, I would like to experience that. I would have to brush up my French a good bit, but I'm really interested to see whether he's lying to me.
So gigging in the States then, what is it? What's the circuit like? Do you have many options in terms of mics around you and stuff like that? Or is
millions? Yeah. I mean, so I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's a Google Calendar out there that's just Atlanta Open Mic Comedy. I don't know who updates it. It maybe says on it, but it's just day by day, every week, where you can go, and there are multiple places per night. Usually, you end up with your favorites, and there are bigger rooms, like the bigger rooms that have national headliners come through. Their mics will be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm thinking of one in particular that usually you need to let them know like months in advance that you want to come to the mic, and they tell you when. Okay, well, you're going to be on March 3rd or whatever. Yeah. So there's quite a lead time there. There was one mic here that was really, really popular on Monday nights. And for the longest time, the deal was there was the guy that ran the mic. You had to call him and leave a message on his voicemail between 4:55 and 5 o'clock. If you were a minute early or a minute late, or you weren't one of the first 30 people or whatever, you didn't get a spot.
Wow.
So it was like, it was a hugely, hugely popular Monday night comedy thing. I don't know if he still does it. He probably does. But yeah, there are heaps and heaps and heaps of mics.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've got, obviously I'm just outside London, so it's like,
I've heard of that.
Yeah. You can pretty much gig here on the open mic circuit, I think every day at the moment, except for a Saturday.
Oh, because something else is going on?
Well, I think what happens on Saturdays is most of the punters want to go and see, I don't want to say the word proper comedy, but known comedy, not open mic comedy.
Okay, yeah.
So the kind of the Saturday night, you get the occasional one, but most pubs and clubs and stuff that will put it on will be like, no, this is the pro night kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, you probably got options of probably between 5 and 10 mics per night, if not more. And then you've got all the throughout the whole week, and even Sundays. Some places even do afternoons, and it's just there's a massive saturation of being able to do mics and stuff like that on London. So it's quite interesting.
I just pulled up the Google Calendar. Tonight there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different places to do open mic. This one's a show up, go up. This one's a bucket list. Yeah, there's like, you know what those are. There's, I'm looking at like Wednesday last night, there were even more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like 8 different mics from 7 to 9:30. So it looks like 5 of them were at 8 o'clock. So you probably couldn't do all of those. Yeah. Unless have that little time turner thing that Hermione Granger had. And there are fewer mics on Fridays and Saturdays because, as you say, people want to do something else. But yeah, there's lots of mics.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Duncan Hart here from episode 37. If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like, a 5-star rating, and a follow on whatever app you're using right now. Mark will be forever grateful. Now, back to this cracking episode.
What are the crowds like in terms of sizes and stuff like that?
It varies. I mean, the big ones will be very warm rooms. There's it's not even listed on here, but like oh yeah, it is. The Laughing Skull is one of our like dedicated comedy rooms where the national acts come through. It's right in the middle of Midtown Atlanta. And so their mic is Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah. So like that's a comedy room. So people know that I'm there to see comedy.
Yeah.
That's why they're there. So if they didn't want to see comedy, they wouldn't be there. So they at least understand the game. And honestly, most of the crowd is probably comics. So, but the place that I started was just a pub, an Irish pub. And they had I don't know why they decided to do comedy on Tuesday nights, but they did. And actually, I wonder if they're still doing it. I don't know. It's not listed on here. But yeah, I mean, mixed bag. I mean, when I did it my first time, I brought, 4 or 5 friends. I think that's pretty common. Yeah. Those guys were all kind enough to laugh at what I was saying, but a lot of nights it's you and the other comics. Yeah. And a softball team maybe wanders in. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's very much the same over here. Is that the scene has certain nights where you'll get you're pretty much always guaranteed a crowd of about 30 odd people.
Wow.
But how much of them are made up of comics is,
right.
But then you get because you won't. I don't think you have this in the States. We have what they call a bringer system.
Oh, we have bringers sometimes.
Oh, you do? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite a common thing in London because there's kind of a saturation of open mic nights and stuff like that. And there's a few places that were like proud of like, we're not a bringer night, just come along, stay for the night and watch the other acts and give the support. And then you kind of like, it's just the other acts.
Right. And
then everybody in that audience is more concentrating on what they're going to be doing, not paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, this is not good.
Yeah. And if they've already gone up, they mysteriously they were drawn away somehow.
Yeah. Emergency phone call happened and I've got to go, lads. See you later.
I was just looking for the bathroom and I fell out the door and I had to go back to my apartment.
It's always the way. But it's a tough old game as such, I think. The whole, I mean, I don't know if you had did you go to open mics before actually starting?
Not really. No. I mean, that's funny. Nobody's ever asked me that, but no. I think maybe maybe I should have, but
I didn't know they existed.
Oh, really?
No, I had no idea that you could go and watch. When anybody said open mic stuff, I always associate it with music.
Yeah. Well, I had done some of those, and I guess I'd probably seen a comic at that, but no, I'd never been to a comedy open mic. I think it probably would have been smarter for me to do that. Maybe. Although, I don't know. No, I didn't.
Would it have changed what you did? Would you have gone, I'm not sure I could do this, all going, yeah, I'll give this a go? Because I guess there's always a theory of, they're shit, I've got to be better than them.
Right. Yeah. And then you get up there and they're like, maybe they weren't so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it.
This is turns out this is harder than it looks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, but I remember when my girlfriend at the time and I had just started dating, I invited her to come and see me do comedy, and that was a mistake. I mean, we're married now, and we've been together over 10 years. I do not know how after she saw that, because I remember what I was saying and what I was trying to do at that night, and also how awful that club was. And I cannot believe that she agreed to marry me after that.
I can sympathize. I think anybody that takes their half to some of the places that open mics happen, and you kind of go,
yeah,
are the toilets clean? And you're like,
do they have one?
Yeah. Yeah. They've got something. And
this place was I guess you guys probably have these, but it was like a shed what I would call a shed, but it was like a round, like a hanger, like a corrugated metal, like a giant pipe that had been, yeah, I guess, but like a giant pipe that had been cut in half and made into a building, and the comedy club was in half of the thing, and it was just some guys that started living in this awful place and decided to make a comedy club. So like, they're just some dudes, and they were living in the top. They had built themselves like rooms in the top of the place. It was like a fraternity house / squat, type of joint. I remember that they had a green screen, but the cat had peed on it, and so like, so it smelled like cat pee.
Oh dear.
The building is still there, but it's a bike shop now. So I don't know what they've done with the cat. I don't know.
Hopefully it escaped.
Yeah. Or got the treatment it needed. One of the two or both.
Yeah. What's been your, I say it kind of semi-serious, what's been your favorite moment on stage?
There's this, my dad passed away. He died right before COVID. And which I don't want to say that I'm glad my parents are dead.
No.
But I am glad that I don't have to know what they think about what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
They left before we had to have very difficult conversations, so I feel glad about that. But my dad died of ALS. And so I had a joke about him dying of ALS that I just thought was really great. And I also really needed to say it, So I had the last show that I did before COVID was at a brewery, and I did 10 minutes, and I did material that I knew was polished. And then I did this joke about my dad. And I said, before I did the joke, you guys are going to hate this. I'm going to do it anyway. And then I'm going to claw my way out of it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. I did the joke. Everybody hated it. And then I clawed my way out of it. And it just felt really good. It felt so good to call the shot like that, to feel like I had enough time and understanding of my material that I could say, here's what's going to happen. And then have that exact thing happen, And then COVID came along, and those guys are no longer producing shows.
So how often do you gig then?
I don't really, not anymore. No. I mean, I'm busy with film. For the last 3 or 4 years, however, more than that now, because COVID was 19. So so I just finished my second feature documentary. I'm starting my third. Putting out a video a week takes a lot of time. We have a child who is going to college in the fall, so we spend a lot of time trying to shepherd that process. And then there's just trying to find time to ride bikes without getting hit by a car. I paint, so I have a lot of stuff that I want to enjoy. But I've been talking to some friends that I want to reconnect with, and I just got to start going back and doing mics, even though the mic scene here is not fun. It's really, there's a lot of drama, a lot of backbiting, just people writing these page after page screeds about one another, people screaming "you're not funny" at one another, on Facebook and stuff.
Oh God.
So I've not enjoyed that. There was an incident in Nashville, close to here, where a guy got mad in a club, and he came back and shot the sign. He shot the club's sign. I suppose in London he would have stabbed the club sign, but he shot the club sign. And I was on a comedian, like local comedians Discord, and they were all they were telling one another why they all needed to start carrying guns on stage. And that's when I knew that I did not want to be in that community anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the most colossally stupid conversations I've ever seen take place. And to this moment, I feel like it maybe was a bit, but also maybe those guys aren't smart enough to do a bit that funny. I mean, I've been sneaking in a little bit, but I have to go back and start doing some mics because there are some people that I really do love and want to be around and whose comedy I love, and they're doing mics, and I'm out here on the internet telling people what I think comedy should be.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense for me to be doing, 5 or 4 or 5 spots a year. I need to get, really get back in the swing of it.
Yeah. So kind of getting back in the swing of it, I guess this comes back round to like the joke writing.
Mm-hmm.
In how you go about it. So we've seen a couple of little some of the videos you put up, like the Valentine's Day one, where you kind of started with the premise and then you kind of work your way through it to get to a final kind of joke, and then you come out with the not knowing if it's funny until it's said out loud kind of thing, which I think is so apt as well.
Mm-hmm.
But is that your main joke writing thesis in the way you do it? Is just premise and then see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I have rules in my mind that I'm trying to follow, but that is the great part of it for me. I mean, that is the part, honestly, that I enjoy the most. I mean, is sitting down here at my desk in the morning, cup of coffee, and trying to write 5 jokes. And to me, people will do things like write a haiku as a joke,
Mm-hmm.
But to me, a joke is better than a haiku because there's the question of whether it can deliver that payload and make somebody laugh.
Yeah.
Not to say that a haiku isn't delivering a payload also, because it's trying to evoke it's trying to remind you of an experience that somebody else had. But I just think that a joke, you don't need to be an enjoyer of Japanese verse to understand a joke. If you speak the same language, you can laugh. So it's that small d democratic, like anybody who speaks this language should be able to understand this and maybe laugh. And I really feel like a poet when I'm doing that. When I'm writing these jokes and thinking about them, like. And I don't dislike performance. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on stage, and I feel good at it. And I also do like announcing for bike races and things like that, and hosting gigs. But you can't really call that stand up. It's just riffing. It's easy, but there is that if I don't know. It's like when I like the part of writing the joke, but it's also like, okay, but you got to go and test it or else.
Yeah.
It's like I'm making a sword here, but if I never go and actually have a sword fight with anybody, how do I know?
Yeah. How do you know
the sword is any good?
Yeah.
But if I had a perfect world, I would probably have been a novelist, like I said. But if I can't have that, then I would probably just try to come up with a joke a day, and find an artful way to, do a drawing with the joke or something like that, like Gary Larson or a New Yorker cartoon or something like that, like just a one joke with some kind of a drawing. I've been thinking about doing something like that, but I don't know if it's, maybe it would be good. Maybe it would be apparent to everyone who looked at it that I was really sniffing my own farts, so. But if you go to a mic and you say something and people laugh, then they can't say that moment is yours forever. Like people after the fact can be like, well, it's not funny and your material's no good and you're not funny. And it's like, okay, but I heard the laughs. So
yeah,
you can say I'm not funny, but if your grandma comes to the show, I'm getting a laugh out of her,
Yeah.
Maybe not more than one,
But you get a laugh, and I know sometimes I find if you get a laugh out of somebody, then you've spread some joy. And for that period of the length of the laugh, they've forgotten about all of their troubles for whatever's going on in their day life or whatever, and they've come for that break and they've laughed. And that's kind of, I think, all we want to do, and really, isn't it? Entertain and get a bit of fulfillment from it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely feels good. Yeah. And I think it's so accessible too. And I that's kind of part of what I want to do with the channel, is to say to people, this is for you if you want it to be. If I can do it, then, anyone can. So just go and do it,
Yeah.
It feels great. It's so much fun. Except for the times when it's not.
But then you realize that if to appreciate the good times, you have to have the bad. You have to. Otherwise, you can't be good all the time.
Yeah. I struggle against that notion, but I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, it's that high, isn't it? That moment you have that high where the first time a set lands or whatever, and everything fits into place. You've got that validation that was good. You've enjoyed it. And then, for me anyway, the next thing you're doing is chasing that high again. If you keep hitting that high, you kind of think, well, where's the challenge in this? Then you have to go higher. So, yeah, that's kind of how I look at things when it comes to comedy and stuff, is that.
Yeah. I think that's what happened to Dave Chappelle. I mean, I talked about this in the video, but I think he knows that he's the greatest that there ever was.
Yeah.
I think that he doesn't have anything to struggle against anymore. And so he's trying to make this material that's cruel into comedy. It's like, the analogy I use is like a bowler who is bowling so hard that the ball is going out the back of the alley. And it's like,
yeah,
okay, yeah, you're really throwing the ball hard, but this is no longer bowling, this is something else. So, yeah, but yeah, you're right. You do want to have it again, I mean, it's your body rewarding you for those, for the success.
Yeah.
Dopamine or whatever it is you get. Serotonin.
Yeah, it's the dopamine hit that you get when it works. It's that moment when you get on stage and you telling a joke, maybe a new joke for the first time, and it just lands, and there's that little subtle thing in the back of your head going, you got that.
Yeah.
You got it.
Got it. Got you, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
You're mine now, you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now listen to this tag, and they're like, I'm not having it.
Yeah. Lost you now. Oh, whatever. But you've had so much good faith in that first one. You can do whatever you want for the next couple of minutes, and then I don't know, something will always come along with you. But I did want to talk about you do like the online writing group kind of thing. Yeah. How have you found that? Because do you ever, sometimes somebody puts out something and you're just thinking, no, this isn't good, but I can't say that.
Well, I kind of I control the people who are in the group, and also I take on the role of benevolent dictator. So I think people know what I'm not going to like.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. They know what I'm not going to like. So, if you're going to come in and say slurs about groups of people,
yeah,
you're not going to be around long. So I think people know that, but I really try to be as constructive as possible. But there are some people who are very committed to writing a lot of wordplay jokes, for example, and I'm not really a fan.
Yeah.
I think that they are sort of. I think wordplay is to jokes what selfies are to photography. It's like pretty much anybody can do it. Not sure it really rises to the level of art. It's not to say it doesn't have its place. Selfies have their place. We do them when we're on vacation. We're tourists,
Yeah.
But I do try to be constructive, but I also want to be honest, because if you're not being honest, then, you lose credibility.
Yeah.
So it can be uncomfortable, but at the same time, comedy's not mine. I'm not the Jesus of comedy. So I just try to do my best and try to say it in a comment sandwich kind of way.
Yeah.
Like, you've done really great. This joke was shit, but you should continue.
But what kind of gave you the idea, really, to kind of open up like a joke writing forum, I guess, as part of it?
Well, we started doing it during COVID. Like when COVID happened, I was doing 3 streams a week. I was doing a monologue writing stream, sketch writing stream, and then like a longer, like I tried to do a crowd writing sitcom type of thing.
Okay.
And we ended up crowdfunding an animated show out of that called Grievance Gulch, and that's on YouTube. But we crowdfunded it and made it over COVID, and that was a giant undertaking.
Yeah.
I thought we'll make 5 like 10-minute animated episodes, and that was dumb. I should have done one really good short instead of trying to make. We ended up making 6, I think.
Okay.
6 episodes. It was too much. It was too much work. And then I started trying to think about ways to gamify it, to make the joke writing into a game.
Yeah.
So that's what the Joke Writing Grand Prix is about. Is about like trying to make it into a game, but not having it be acrimonious. You know, I really love the way that British reality TV game shows like Great British Bake Off / Great British Baking Show, the way that everybody really cares about their performance,
yeah,
but they don't begrudge other people, you know, and they're kind to one another, and they manage to stay friends. And it's like, I really, really want to win, and people might cry when they get kicked off, but they stay friends, you know. And Americans would be like stabbing one another. I mean, you know, or shooting one another, probably more likely shooting people with a gun that shoots knives. Or a smaller gun. The bullet would be an even smaller gun.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, I like the idea of conflict and competition because it makes a good story, but not to the point where we're mad at one another. So it's like, there are points in the game, but they don't matter that much.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
The idea is that we get together and write a bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. I hope to join one soon. I will try to get involved in one or two at some point.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of different versions where, like, because I like the idea of people writing spontaneously, but I also like the idea of giving people a prompt and giving them 24 hours to write.
Yeah. Like
one thing, and then having a stream around that. So we've done a couple of those too. But I'm just monkeying around with the format to try to find something that's fun for me to put on and fun for people to do and feels like it encourages people. But, you know, the Joke Writing Grand Prix streams is one of those things that people ask me about all the time. When's there going to be another one? You know? So if people are excited enough to ask me about it, I feel like, you know, I should do it. Yeah.
It's something different out there, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what the scene is like around where you are, but in London, there are various kind of like places you can go. They call them writing gyms, where you kind of you can turn up on a Sunday morning free of charge for an hour, and there'll be 10 of you, and then somebody will give a topic, and then you go away and write for 10, 15 minutes, and everybody kind of chucks their ideas back in the hat on what they've come up with, and just to see if it generates any material.
Wow. And then after the fact, like, can anybody take any of the ideas home with them after the...
I guess so. Because I'm part of a...
or is it like, hey, that was my idea? Well, you son of a bitch.
I don't know if that ever happens in those ones, because I've never really kind of gone for them because of their location. But we've got a kind of, I don't know how to describe it. We've got a thing going on locally to where I live where on a Saturday or Sunday, 5, 6, 7, 8 people will get together in a proper rehearsal room, and everyone gets given 20 to 30 minutes each. And you go up, you've got a microphone, you've got a stand, you've got a stool, you do whatever you want. You can rehearse your stuff, you can practice some stuff, you can try new stuff, whatever.
So it's like a mini Fringe.
Kind of. And then you can say to the people, give us some feedback. And then the feedback comes. But the one critical rule we always have is any feedback you offer is the person that's on the stage. It belongs to them.
Okay.
And that's been adhered to extremely well. And you get to, because we see each other quite regularly, you get to see those people try out those jokes live on an open mic, and you're like,
I gave him that one. Yeah.
There has been a couple of moments on that. There was a girl, one of ours, where she was doing a thing about her father would swear at her, or would swear, but so as they grew up, they put like a little jar in the corner, a swear jar. So every time he swore, he was supposed to put money in the jar. And she said, oh yeah, it was a little Chinese style dog or something. Whatever. I said, go on eBay, find one, take it on stage with you, and do that act every time you swear, because she's very I don't want to say prim and proper, but very well spoken, and you wouldn't expect her to swear. And then when she comes out with the F's and the Jeffs and all of that, it's a shock, and it's like, that's great. But then if she gets a coin out of her pocket and then puts it in the jar, and you hear the ting as it hits the bottom of the, it's like, yes.
See, had I been in the room when you suggested that, I would have been like, no way, no, absolutely, do not become a prop comic, no. And then I would have seen that and been like, okay, I was wrong. This is funny.
It was just, it just took everything to another level, and it was so good to see. And when you see things like that, you're kind of like, yeah, I helped that person, or somebody helped me, and I've had a few jokes that have come out of it, and I used them the other night and they worked, and you're just like, thank you. It was the missing piece of that routine.
Yeah.
It didn't have an end, but now it has an end. And it's just, I know,
I see you breaking into the circle of life at this moment. You know, there's a single ray of sunshine down.
And then you go and do another open mic and it goes absolutely disaster, and you question, why am I doing this at all?
Yeah. What am I even doing? Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of how it is.
I do love the idea of a writing gym, though. That's got to be taking place here.
It's a really good idea. Somebody must have stolen something from one of them at some point from somebody else.
I don't know. People have asked me before, like, is it okay if I use that? Like, I've said something and they've been like, is it okay if I use that? I mean, yeah, obviously, of course. I don't think material is that important. I think you and your personality are the important, valuable thing. So all of this fighting back and forth about who stole what joke from whom is a little bit ridiculous, because I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. So, but then again, if like there are all those stories about like Robin Williams and people like that, like hearing an open mic comic do a joke and then just taking the joke and going with it, and people just had to like not be mad about it because he's Robin Williams. So I don't think that's cool. But you know, people at that level aren't coming to see me do any work. So, you know. If the busboy or the bartender want to say one of my jokes and pretend they made it up, use it in good health, you know?
Yeah. So talking of jokes, as we do with comedy, I'd like to introduce the Comedian's Challenge to you, which is to tell a joke from this joke book here called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. And the idea I give to all the comedians is they get to pick a joke from this book, tell it on stage. They can either build it into a set, tell it standalone, however they want. Some of them are going to be pun-based. So, you know.
Okay.
So if you want to try this yourself, or if you want to take the premise of the joke and put it into like the online writing groups that you do, you can pick.
Okay.
So if you want to give me a number between 5 and 95.
So 95 pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some jokes have two on each page.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you something before we go any farther. Does Sid Finch know that you're doing this? Are you acquainted with him?
I'm not acquainted with him at all. I've tried to find him.
Yeah.
I believe he's an Australian comic.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, nah. I have a standard joke I do whenever I meet an Australian person. Whenever I meet they're like, oh, I'm from Australia. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I speak a bit of Australian. Gets a laugh every time. And if they laugh at that, then the tag is, I can't say any of it here, but, you know, I know a little bit. They like that too. Yeah, I just wonder if Sid Finch knows that this is going on. But I'm happy to do either. Okay, you needed a number. I mean, it's got to be 69. Give me 69.
I know. I can probably tell you what 69 is without actually reading it. But
because it's been chosen so many times? Well, then never mind.
It has been chosen. It's been chosen once. Usually I do the, you can't do the same joke again as somebody else, but
okay.
This is fine.
Well, let me change then. I'll do, give me 37, prime number.
Okay.
37.
Okay. The joke on page 37 that I'd like you to either tell on stage or use it as a premise is, people are always really impressed with my homemade ice cream. I got the recipe at Sunday school.
Oh, God.
A few moments later.
Mark.
I'm sorry.
I'm typing it in anyway, but yeah, that's I'm very mad about that.
I'll let you have 69 as well, so you can double barrel for this one. A man walked into a fishmonger's with a mackerel on his shoulder. Do you make fish cakes? The man asked. We sure do, said the fishmonger. Great, said the man. It's his birthday.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah, I thought you would.
I remember a much dirtier version of that. I don't remember how it goes, but the punchline was something along the lines of, "This is the pig I've been sleeping with when you're not around," and then it's, "I wasn't talking to you," is the end of the joke. Yeah, I like the fish cakes.
Yeah,
but that one's taken. Right?
It's taken. It's been told, but hey, it was taken on this side of the pond. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. So they didn't have international distribution on that one.
No. Ironically, it was actually the very first joke picked from the joke book as well, unsurprisingly enough.
Well, here's my concern, and perhaps when we get in touch with Sid, we can ask him about this, but if someone legitimately wanted a cake for a fish, wouldn't they go to a baker? Why would you go to the fishmonger? Come on, Sid. It doesn't stand up, buddy. Just a cursory review, Finch.
It's always quite fun, that book. Some of them are absolutely awful.
Yeah, I are you watching Bobby Fingers?
No.
Are you hip to Bobby Fingers? He's one of the funniest things that's currently happening on YouTube.
Okay.
He's a Irish guy. He's got a lot of talents, but he's in a band that I think is pretty popular. I'm not sure, but he picks some weird moment and he makes a diorama about the weird moment. And as he's making the diorama, he's like talking about it. It's hard to explain, but it's very funny. But he did he was making fun of Rogan in one of his most recent things, and there's a moment where he's talking about how he could become more like Joe Rogan, and he's like, and then I put on a yellow shirt and I told some shit jokes. and then it shows him on stage at some comedy club doing jokes. People in the audience don't know that he's doing a meta bit.
Yeah.
They're just responding to the jokes at face value, and he is bombing. I mean, they are bad jokes, but it takes, it really takes some cojones to go up there and bomb, even if it's on purpose. It takes a chunk out of your soul, whether you want it to or not.
Very much so.
We got to get a hold of Sid, though. I want to know about the reasoning behind this going to a fishmonger for baked goods. That's just, I mean, I don't know how you guys do things over there, but that's madness. Surely a baker, an underwater baker.
An underwater baker. See, this takes you on starts the train of thought about where you're going, doesn't it? The brain starts going, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, probably the easiest thing to do, which would feel a bit like cheating, is to do what I'm doing now, which is just riff in a meta way about what I don't like about the joke and like pick it apart. Because the whole purpose of the joke is to get to the pun of, fish cakes.
Yeah.
But so it's not really fair to try to make more out of it than it is. But that's probably what I would do. But that would be cheating. Right. But maybe, what it could be good for is, I tell you what we'll do. We'll use that as an example, and we'll say we'll set the writers loose from the Discord on creating similarly shaped, because they kind of both have a similar shape, right? Because there's, the two stories of the joke. In the first story of the ice cream joke, it's just people like my recipe for ice cream. And then the second story is I was talking about, Sunday school, and there's that comparison of Sunday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And then the fish cakes and the fishmonger in the second one. So they're kind of similarly shaped. But if we turn the writers loose on it, maybe they'll come up with some that we don't dislike quite so much.
Yeah, maybe.
They're pretty creative. Cool. Now, are you willing to come and be a member of the gang and help write that joke whenever it happens?
If I'm around, I will be. Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in a death pact now, buddy. We're Thelma and Louise on this. I'm not letting you wriggle away from your own.
Don't. Somebody once in an episode after I started doing the joke challenge, somebody said, "Have you ever done it?" And I was just like, "No." I said, "Right, I run a comedy night. I want you to come and perform at my comedy night, and I want you to do your joke there." I was just like, "Okay." So I did.
Yeah, no, see, the funny part of this is I'm making you uncomfortable, not you're making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm intending to place this petard and then leave before it explodes.
That's great.
That's funny. Well, we'll find a time. I do it on Sunday afternoon so that our CET and BST pals can join us Sunday afternoon my time. So it's not too late for the Euros and the Brits.
Cool.
So
let me know and I'll have a look, and when the next one is, and I'll see if I can get along.
You're gonna wriggle away, aren't you?
No.
Slippery man.
No. I might have been born in the year of the snake, but I'm not a snake.
Okay.
I'll do my best. But I just wanted to be like, as we're kind of like wrapping up, it's like, how can people find you then online, and where's the best places to get hold of you and stuff?
Comedy Zola. I think if you randomly put it into the interwebs, I'll just check. Yeah, that's the channel. I see my face. Patreon, Comedy Zola, patreon.com/Comedy Zola. I'd love to have folks there. You can find all my work at jimhodgson.com, HODGSON.com, films and novels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, watch my films, please. Buy my books. I didn't have a third thing to add to the list, so now I'm just out of sorts. What do you say? What do you say when you get to 2 and you don't have a third? I don't know. Take up golf. I don't know. Try anything.
No, you can find us on Instagram, Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, which is openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to this on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, review, 5 stars, all of that kind of jazz. It helps get us up the charts and stuff like that, and gets all these people heard. So I just want to say, finally, thank you very much for your time today, Jim.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Cool. I've had so much fun today. I've learned so much, especially about your cues.
Well, that's a shock, but I'm glad though.
And for everybody else, I will speak to you all again very, very soon.